Hello everybody, good evening, welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk. I'm back, at least tonight I'm back. I have spent pretty much the entire day in bed trying to basically get myself fit enough to be able to do a show tonight, because I was just like, I didn't do Wednesday, and I felt bad for not doing Wednesday, and so I wanted to be here, and I wanted to try and get some consistency back to doing my my shows, my Sunday Night Live and my Songwriting Simplified shows. I want to get some consistency back with those, because I looked at my analytics, and I wish I hadn't. I don't know why I pay attention to analytics. I really don't. Because it feeds into a perceived performance anxiety. I'm not saying it's a genuine performance anxiety, but it certainly feeds into a perceived performance anxiety, which is, I look at how many views I have had over like the last 48 hours, and it was down at below 100 views. I thought, oh, okay, this is maybe the lowest number of views I have had for my entire channel since I started doing live streams, to be honest. And so I was a little bit, I need to get back. I need to get back into the groove of doing my two shows every week. I've fallen a little bit behind with some of the videos that I'm making at the moment, which are going to get posted up over the course of the next wee while. So I've got a video coming soon on Fender Studio, because I haven't done a video on Fender Studio since we launched it. So I was just like, maybe I should actually do a video covering some of the features, because I did that live stream video and that was all I've done. And so I thought maybe I should go back and go over some of the things you can do, depending upon which device you're on. So I've got some Fender Studio videos coming. So watch out for those when they start popping up on the channel. And I've got a whole bunch of other videos coming as well. I am toying with the idea of doing some Notion videos to cover some, maybe doing some notation basics, like where the notes live on the stave, note values, note durations, that kind of stuff, key signatures, that kind of thing, so that people basically have a simple and basic grasp of music notation, because I think that's a good thing for everybody to have, whether you play an instrument or not. Even if you are, like some of you are, you're just mix engineers. That's all you do. You just mix. It's still a really good idea to have some understanding of music notation, because it actually helps you to mix, believe it or not. If you have some understanding of what a 16th note is, what it looks like on a chart, particularly if you are mixing a score for a film, for example, you need to know where you are in the score so that you can automate the volume and the panning for certain elements of the mix at certain points in a score, for example. So if you are in a situation where somebody says, hey, can you mix this score for this this commercial? Or can you mix the score for this this short film? And this may be a 10-minute short or a 15-minute short. You need to have some understanding of where you are in the score and what is in the score as it relates to the picture. And so being able to understand what elements are what needs automated, crescendos, dynamics, those kind of things. Yes, you can hear them with your ears, but being able to see them on the page gives you a point of a physical contact point, a point of reference. So this is why I think notation is good for everybody to know. Whether you're just a mix engineer or you are a producer, doesn't matter. You don't have to be a composer. Music notation, I think, is valuable for anybody in any aspect of the music production process, even if you're a mastering engineer. So, so I am definitely toying with that idea. But again, in order for it to be something that is worthwhile me doing, as in terms of investment of time, I need to know whether it's going to be something that's of value to the people who watch my videos and who are subscribers to my channel. So if you are watching, you're not a subscriber yet, get subscribed. That's the first thing to do. And then if this is something that you are interested in, if you're interested in going over some notation basics, then let me know. You can do that by commenting on this video when it's no longer a live stream, it's a video. Or you can send me an email. You can go to the web address at the bottom there, jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk, and hit the contact form and say, yes, I'm actually really interested in notation. And the more people that are interested, the more likely I am actually to pursue making a short notation series. I have got another video series that I shot back in 2019, and I never actually put it up on the channel. And there's a reason why I didn't put it up on the channel. And that's because, having made the series, there really wasn't a whole lot of demand for it. I asked, I seem to recall I put a poll out way back in 2019. And I think maybe like 4 people or 5 people said that they were interested in it. And I was just like, well, that's not really enough to warrant putting it up on the channel. So that remains on my hard drive. So I do have video series like that where it would be nice to get some of those things up on the channel. But again, there's no point in me making videos if people aren't interested in them, because that wastes everybody's time. All right, so with that all said, let's go see who is first in the door. And for some reason, it won't scroll up the chat. That's annoying. It looks like Billy Morgan is in first. And he beats Rich Cresswell by 35 minutes. And Rich says, damn you, Billy. Yep. Billy is always first. He loves to be first. Tony Stringer says, I will be with you on a replay. Have fun. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for dropping by, and I hope you enjoyed the replay. And Ron, the key man, is here, who's complaining that he doesn't have a crown, and then he got his crown. And 75 XP. There you go. And we got Dave from Bob's NY here as well. And we've got Keith from Radio Talk Trumpet. We've got Don Oliver here. Just Bob is here, which is awesome. And he says, hit the like button. Yes, please. If you are watching and you like what you hear and what you are seeing. And I'm not just talking about this pretty mug, but, you know, if you like what I do, then please do hit the like button. Helps me tremendously. More than you know, actually. Now, I should just pause here for a second. I still have my cold. Like I said, I've been in bed all day. Normally, I would have been at church today, but I have been in my bed all day because basically just going down to answer the door and come back upstairs was enough to leave me kind of out of breath, which is not good. So I thought, okay, I just need to rest. So I continued to rest. And I got up out of bed maybe about an hour ago. So I've been awake, up and about for about an hour. And we'll see how we go. Who else is here? Kyle Jadrziak is here. And he says you would need over 580,000 streams on Spotify to make minimum wage. Yeah, I mean, that tells you just how bad streaming services are. And that's why I do not rely upon them for income. I know that there are people on YouTube who do. And I actually have friends who, that basically YouTube is their full-time job. That's what they do for a living. Being on this crazy social media network, it's their thing. It's what they do for their employment. And so basically, as far as I see it, they may disagree with me here, but as far as I see it, they have all of their eggs in one virtual basket. I don't think that's a good idea. Because what happens if Google suddenly decides we don't want YouTube anymore? And they either sell it, seeing as it is actually a wholly owned subsidiary of Google, or they just shut it down. They just pull the plug. Goodbye, YouTube. Now, that would obviously adversely affect me because I wouldn't be able to make videos anymore. However, there are other video platforms out there. And I'm sure that it would not take very long before an alternative to Google, an alternative to YouTube would appear on the scene, ready and waiting to take over from YouTube. So, but I have no vested financial interest in YouTube. My income does not depend upon it. This is actually something I do for fun. This is something I do for my own enjoyment because I love making videos that help you, that help you understand music better, help you understand Studio One and other PreSonus products better. That's what I live for. That's what I enjoy doing. In fact, you know, that's a big aspect of my day job at PreSonus. So, so this is kind of, it's not like I am paid out of my PreSonus job to do this, to make these videos and to do these live streams at midnight, which is what it is. For me, it's midnight. You know, this is not part of my day job. This is actually my own time, this is my own playground. This is my own thing. PreSonus is not in any way involved in what I do. They used to be until I became a PreSonus employee, and now obviously, for obvious understandable reasons, that's not the case anymore. So, you know, they're not involved at all in this channel. They know that I do it and they applaud me and they support me doing it, but they don't, you know, they don't sponsor or endorse anything that I do on this channel. So yeah, I have no financial vested interest in this channel. This is purely personal fun for me. Because I'm a passionate educator and, you know, so this is, you know, this is all about music. This is all about helping everybody make better music and making it better now and better in the future. That's primarily what this channel exists for. But it just also happens that since starting this channel way back in 2011, I was already hooked into the PreSonus world. And had started making Studio One videos and stuff like that fairly quickly in 2014, 2015, and PreSonus very quickly kind of loosely got involved, and then over time they got more involved, and then I now work for the company. But you know, this has always been something I do for me, and I do for you, and I do for fun and for enjoyment. And you know, for me, the blessing is seeing you guys making music. And on that note, on the whole thing of seeing you guys make music, we do have songwriting challenges coming up this year. This is not the songwriting show, obviously, but I just want to drop this again into your radar, into your thinking, that we do have a Halloween songwriting challenge coming up, and then later in the year, towards the back end of the year, or as my kids like to say, the arse end of the year, we will have the Christmas one, the Christmas songwriting challenge as well. And I will be partnering once again with Rich Cresswell for those. So stick around here if you are interested in taking part in those. Prizes are a thing for these challenges. So if you are interested and this is something that you would like to be involved in, then make sure you are subscribed to this channel. Hit that subscribe button now and select all notifications because I will be having Rich on Songwriting Simplified either this week or next week. I have to talk to him about when he's available, and I will have him on the show and we will officially announce the challenge for Halloween and what the rules are going to be and what the brief will be that you guys will need to fulfill if you want to have a chance at winning prizes. So, or a prize, I should say. So yeah, that will be coming up in the next week or two. So stick around, make sure you're subscribed. All right, so who else do we have here? We got Bobby Booth here. We have Tony Cardona as well. Awesome. Rich says, use Spotify/YouTube for advertising your music, not to rely on it for income. Totally agree. Totally agree. Arami is here. He says, hi, Johnny, misspelling my name, but I won't hold it against you. How does the main LFO on Sample 1 work with regards to the LFO knobs on the amp, filter, and pitch sections? This is a good question. I don't tend to use Sample 1 very much. I will be honest with you. But the main LFO, I mean, basically, it's a low filter thing. That's what the LFO is. So I think you have like an overall LFO that shapes the LFO for the whole preset or whatever it is that you have in Sample 1, the whole sound. And then you have, I think, an LFO on the amp and the filter and pitch sections as well. So individual LFOs as well as an overall LFO. I think that's kind of how it works. Like I said, I don't really use Sample 1 very much. In fact, in the last 5 years, I think I can count 2 times in which I have used Sample 1. Now, that's not because it's bad. It's just not in my wheelhouse musically. You know, I do acoustic music. I do jazz, I do folk, and I do other acoustic music. That's what I do. I do some orchestral music as well. So I don't really have a need for Sample 1. I do have a need for Impact because I use Impact for drums and things like that. But yeah, I don't really use it very much. So yeah, Sample 1 is not something I know a whole lot about. Rich wrote a message and then deleted it. But Ron says LFO is a modulator. That much I did know. I just don't know the specifics as to exactly what it does. I know it's a modulator. So anybody that's in the chat here who is a synth person does a lot of that kind of thing is probably going to be able to answer this question better than I can. One thing I always admit to is if somebody asks a question to which I don't know the answer to, I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer. Because I think honesty is always the best policy. I'm not a Presonus encyclopedia, or a Studio One encyclopedia for that matter. So I'm not going to know everything that there is to know about everything to do with Studio One. I know a lot about using Studio One, but there are aspects of Studio One that I don't know much about because I just don't use them. Like Sample 1, I really don't use it very much. I think I've used it for a couple of things where I needed a particular sound effect, or oh, I know what I used it for. The last time I used it was for the Halloween challenge last year. I remember that because I needed a rumbling kind of sound that then had like it was a rumbling sound. I could hear it in my head because that whole song is about the eruption of the volcano Soufriere on Montserrat. And so towards the end of the song, I needed a rumbling effect to simulate the sound of a volcano. Now, I could have gone and found volcano sound effects, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make my own. And so I have, you can't really see it, but back there I have a hot tap. And that basically boils water from room temperature to boiling temperature in about 15 seconds. Ish. It's around about there. And so basically I recorded it. I put this microphone up in front of the hot tap, and I recorded the sound of it basically coming up to its boil, and then it switching itself off. And then I brought that into sample one, and I played around with the parameters until I got it to make that nice low rumbly kind of sound. I pitched it down quite a bit as well, and then I just blended it in with I think a roll on an orchestral bass drum at the same time. So the two things kind of go concurrently, and that's how I got my nice little simulation of a volcano erupting. And that's maybe the last time that I used sample one. So let's see. We do have some help here. For those commenting the answer, what and how does it modulate? Which matrix is that? And so Ron says modulate VCO, VCF, and VCA. Rich says in sample one, the LFO modulation section, it differs from presence in that each section that contains an LFO enables you to animate that parameter. It's basically the same as Impact's envelopes with added LFO controller. Dwayne says low frequency oscillator using synths can modulate sound frequency variation level and just anything you need a voltage to control a function. And RME says, that's my point exactly. I don't understand the signal flow on sample one. In regards to LFO, it's easy on a synth. An envelope can also modulate the VCO, VCA, or VCF. There we go. So there's a good number of you here who know a bit more about LFOs than I do, because I don't work with synthesizers. So I knew that people like Rich and Ron would be able to pitch in here because they do this a lot. I don't. Another person that would be really great to have here would be Gregor, because not only is Gregor a Studio One expert, but he also works with Sample One, and he has Euro racks, or has had a Euro rack, and understands how synthesis like this works. And I don't. Rich says you need to adjust the knob that says LFO for it to take effect. This is the small knob next to the envelope. There you go. Let's see. D Sound Recording Studio is here, and he says, can we use battery samples in Impact? Now, when you say battery, I am assuming you are referring to the drum sample player, which I believe is made by Native Instruments, if I remember rightly. Native Instruments battery. Now, I used to use battery back in the day when I was still a Cubase evangelist, so I'm talking 20 years ago, 21 years ago, when I was still a hardcore Cubase evangelist, and I was close friends with the Steinberg development guys. And that was really the last time I used battery, to be honest. Was in my Cubase days. My Cubase period came to an end in 2013 when I jumped over to Studio One, and I don't even have a Steinberg account anymore. So I believe the answer is no, because I believe that the battery sounds and the battery samples are proprietary, I believe. So I think they are locked, which means you can't even export them out of battery and into Impact, I believe. I believe that's the case. because I believe that they are proprietary so that people can't actually extract them and use them in other products, because they want you to use the battery sounds in battery and not in some other third-party player. So I believe that they are locked, if I remember rightly. Like I said, it's been a long time. It's been like 11 years since I've used it. And certainly back 11 years ago, it was not possible to take them out of battery at all and put them in any other software. So I assume that that is still the case, unless they've changed that. They may have changed that, because I know that there was a number of people that wanted to do the same back in the day, and they may still, they may have like, due to, you know, a large groundswell of public request, maybe, I don't know, they may have opened them up so that they can be extracted and used in other products. I doubt it. I doubt it very much, because then people wouldn't buy battery, would they? They would just, you know, swap kits. You know, you would bundle them together into a kit, and then you could just go on some file sharing site and just share free kits with people, or you could charge them for a product that you didn't actually make. So I'm pretty sure that they are locked for that reason. All right, so we got 20 people here, which is awesome. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I appreciate you guys a massive amount. And we have 17 people that have hit the like button. Thank you very much for that, too. You guys are freaking awesome. Ron says an LFO is not part of the audio signal path directly. And then Rich follows that up by saying, like many modulators, it works in a positive or negative. Yes. Set the LFO on the volume to something basic like quarter note, and then move the LFO knob clockwise. That will give you a positive. Move it to the center and modulation will be less. There you go. Some good answers here to that question on LFO and how that works in sample one. So this is good stuff, man. I appreciate it. Aramir says, which is possible to assign Xtrem LFO to parameters on other native plugins and instruments. I'll make that a feature request. Yes, definitely go to feedback-software.presonus.com and make your feature request there. And then campaign to get votes for it. That's what I would advise. Go make the feature request, then campaign to get votes for it. The more votes it gets, the more likely it is going to have some weight with the Presonus development team, and the more likely they are going to look at it and go, a lot of people seem to want this. It's maybe worth us doing. It's like, you know, when you guys make a feature request to me for a particular video, the more people that ask for the same thing, the more likely I'm going to make the video, because that shows that there is interest in me making the video. And so it is with Presonus. The more people that ask for the same thing, then the more it is in Presonus's interest to investment time and investment costs into developing that feature and adding it into Studio One in the future. So that's the best way to make it happen, to be honest. And if you're wondering, you know, do they ever actually look at feedback-software.presonus.com? Yes, they do. They do. Every week it gets looked at. It gets reviewed by not only Presonus developers, but also the product manager for Studio One also looks at it every week as well. And they get collated into groups, into bundles of, you know, what fits into particular builds and that kind of thing. Which is why sometimes there are feature requests that they're there, they are incredibly popular, but they don't get added to Studio One for several years. Because it may be that it's just technically not possible yet to be able to actually develop it, because maybe there's a part of the code to the Studio One code base that does not yet exist, which would need to be done first in order for this feature to be able to be built. And so sometimes features will sit there for quite a while, sometimes a few years before they get added. It's not that they are getting ignored. It's just that, development doesn't work like that. Some people think, I'm not saying everybody thinks this, but certainly some people do seem to think this, that if they make a feature request, then somehow that automatically grants that feature request the right to be implemented in the very next build of Studio One. It does not work like that. Because, each version or each build of Studio One has a different focus, because you can't please everybody all of the time. So sometimes the focus will be mastering, and there'll be a bunch of features for mastering, but there won't be any mixing features. There won't be any music production features. There won't be any virtual instruments. There won't be, any recording features, for example. And then maybe another build, the focus will be on the EDM people. So things like the launcher got added because of that, because that was a music production feature. And, Studio One at that particular point, that particular build was all about targeting that particular market. And so, different bits get different amounts of attention at different points at different time, because you can't just throw features at a build of Studio One and hope that everybody's going to be pleased, because they won't be. So you have to target a particular group and say, we're going to please this particular group of people with this build, this particular group of people with this build, this particular group of people over here, this particular group of people over here at different times, because you can't just throw features scattergun style at Studio One, because then Studio One would just be chaos and there'll be no focus to it. There'll be no direction to it. And you can't develop software like that. You can't maintain software like that. And you're just asking for issues. You're asking for crashes. You're asking for bugs. You're asking for all sorts of trouble. So everything has to have a focus. And so feature requests are important. Go make them. Just don't expect them to necessarily be added in the next build of Studio One, because that might happen, but it might not. And if it doesn't, it's not because your feature request is being ignored. It's not because your feature request is being overlooked. It's just being set aside and assigned to a particular build that it's suitable for. Okay, so I hope everybody has a little bit of understanding about feature requests and how those work, and the best way to make sure that you get your feature request in there. And then it's just about campaigning to get votes for your feature request, and then you play the patience game, and eventually it'll get added. So I know personally for myself, over the past 13 or so years, I've made a bunch of feature requests. A lot of my feature requests have been added to Studio One, and they are there currently. But some of my feature requests have not yet been added to Studio One because, I don't know, I'm not a developer. But I trust the development team know what they're doing. And, when there's a space for it, when there's a reason for it, when there's a good slot for it, and there's a good build into which that feature request fits, it may well get added. And I'm not going to go and harass them, because I meet with the developers regularly. I meet with them every week. And I'm not just going to sit there and say, hey, guys, what about my feature request? because no, that's just rude and not appropriate. So yeah, Arami, please do go make that feature request about the LFO in Xtreme. That's a good idea. Let's see. I'm not going to read out any more of the LFO stuff. But yeah, I hope that helps if you are looking to understand a little bit more about LFO and how that works in Sample One, and how that works maybe in Presence and other instruments as well. Then yeah, please do have a read through these awesome answers here for the the stuff on LFO. Artemis says, does anyone know if Max MSP by Cycling 74 can be used in Studio One? Not necessarily like Max for Live, but usable. No idea. I don't even know what that is. No idea. I'm aware of Cycling 74 because I think most Windows PCs somehow have a Cycling 74 folder in them. So, but to be honest, I don't know what that is. I'll be honest. Other than, 1974 was the year before I was born. Artemis says, I'm looking forward to Lucas's Arranger Marker add-ons. Yeah, Lucas is busy beavering away, working on some new stuff for macro toolbars and stuff like that he has developed. And it's all very exciting. The stuff that he's got coming in the remainder of 2025 is going to be fantastic. And it's going to be a great addition to Studio One, I think. Rich says the LFO tools in Sample 1 are the exact same as Xtrem. The only difference is the ability to step sequence. Correct. That I do know. All right, we have reached the halfway point in the show. We got 26 people here, which is fantastic. Thanks, everybody. If anyone has any more questions, please do get them in the chat. Now, I should have started off by saying the best way to ask a question is to start your question, especially if you're directing towards me, is to start by typing at Jonny Lipsham. And if you do that, then it will autofill at Jonny Lipsham Studios. Make sure that goes at the start of your question, because what that does for me is that highlights my name in red, and it means that it's just easier for me to spot your questions from amongst the other chat that's going on here. Like, for example, the awesome, fantastic chat that's going on here about LFO. And I don't want to miss your question amongst all the fantastic chat about LFO here. Sean Carr is in the building. Hello, Sean. Good to see you, buddy. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. So that means we have 27 people here. Now, just as a quick reminder, because it may be pertinent here, it's just gone up to 28. The record currently for just a regular Sunday Night Live, where there is no Studio One release or anything like that, the current record is 34. And us getting to 28 is perilously close to that. We only need like 6, maybe 7 more people to go past that record. At least, to go one better than 34. So if you know people that you think that what I do here would be useful to them, helpful to them, get them in here. Mark Lance is here. Hello, Mark. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Sunday Night Live. He says, made it late, but listening in. Mark, very glad you're here. If you've got a Studio One question, please do get it in the chat, mate. I would appreciate that. If you've got if you're not a Studio One user and you are here, you are watching, please do hit the subscribe button, because then you can ask a question. If you're not subscribed, you won't be able to ask a question, because the chat is in subscriber mode only for security reasons. Makes it nice and secure. Basically it's a way to stop people from spamming the chat, like we had maybe a few years ago now, where we did get people that were spamming porno links and stuff like that. And that's not what this channel is all about. So you need to make sure you're subscribed before you can ask a question. If you subscribe, wait a couple of minutes, and then the chat will be open to you. Yeah, you got to do at Jonny Lipsham Studios, JW, not just at Jonny Lipsham. But I did see your question, so we're good. I'll let you off this time. Which invaded my train of thought, and I've completely forgotten how to finish the rest of that sentence. I was in the throes of, but it's okay. It's okay. So yeah, make sure you're subscribed, because it's important. Because that way you can get your questions answered. If you've got broader questions about recording in general, mixing in general, mastering in general, and you're not a Studio One person and you're here, I can take those questions too. This is not just a Studio One show, but it kind of is. But it's not just a Studio One show. So I use Studio One, and this show's kind of primarily centered around PreSonus products and Studio One in particular, but I'll take broad questions as well if you use a different DAW. D-Sound Studio, Recording Studio says, when is the next update, please? If I were to answer that question, I would have to delete this. I would have to delete this show. I'd have to end the show right now and delete it. So I'm not going to answer that question because, as Kyle correctly says, I'm under an NDA because I work for PreSonus. So although, yes, I know the answer to your question, I'm not making that news publicly available. So just know that when the next update is available, you will know about it, okay? You will absolutely know about it because I will be doing a video on everything to do with the next update. So make sure you're subscribed, stick around, because when the next Studio One update is around in the future, who knows when? Of course, I will have a video on it because that's what I do. You go back through my channel, you'll see that I've got videos on new versions and new updates to Studio One. You'll see those. Like, for example, I've done 7.0, I've done 7.1, I've done 7.2. And before that, I did all the major points of version 6, all the major points of version 5, all the major points of version 4, and all the major points of version 3 I did as well. From version 3.5, I didn't do the first few. I didn't do 3.1, and I didn't do 3.2, and I didn't do 3.3, but I started doing release videos from 3.5. So when there is a new update released publicly, there will be a video to explore those features. JW says UAD released MIDI Learn for their plugins. Is there a way to do some episode with that in Studio One and the Studio Live Series 3? Is there a way to do some episode of that with Studio One and Studio Live 3? No. And I'll tell you why. Yes, I do have a Studio Live Series 3, but I don't use it as a mixer. I use it in DAW mode, and I don't actually have a camera that will look down directly on top of the Studio Live. And as far as I know, Richard Gaspard, who's the Studio One, he is the Studio Live guy. Richard Gaspard, he's my colleague and my friend, and I've just watched the replay of myself doing that. My God, that looked very weird. Yeah, Richard Gaspard is a very good friend of mine, and he also does all the Studio Live Series 3 videos on the PreSonus YouTube channel. If there is anything that is going to be noteworthy for the Studio Live Series 3 mixers, go check out his playlist in the PreSonus YouTube channel, and he will make a video on it. As for whether there is a way to do MIDI learning using the Studio Live, I don't think so. There is a way to do MIDI learn in Studio One, but not necessarily specifically with the Series 3, I don't think. I think one thing you can do is you can map parameters of a plugin to the fat channel control encoders that are on the Series 3 mixer. You can do that. Again, Richard Gaspard has a video on that as well. So definitely go check that out. He pretty much has covered everything to do with the Series 3 mixers since our former colleague Ray Tanson left the company to go to another company a few years back. I think it was like 2021. Richard Gaspar basically took over doing the Studio Live videos. Let's see. Mark Lance says, I just got a MacBook Pro. Good for you. I'm not really a Mac guy, but they're okay. I am actually I have an iMac over here. It's maybe the slowest Mac I have ever used in my life. But I do have an iMac. And I'm hoping that I will get that replaced with a Mac Mini, one of the M3 or M4 Mac Minis. I'm hoping I'll be able to get that. But for right now, I start up Studio One and I go make a cup of tea and I do some work. And then by the time I've done my work, Studio One has loaded. That's how slow that Mac is. So, yeah, I'm not really a fan of Macs, not just because that particular Mac is slow. I have used other Macs that have been way, way, way faster. I'm just not a fan. He says, any suggestions on adding Studio One to it? And Rich Cresswell answers by saying install it, and that is the correct answer. Yeah, you basically log in to your my.presonus.com account on your Mac. You click on products, you click on Studio One Pro 7 or whatever version of Studio One you're using, and you have registered in your account, and you download the installer. It's as simple as that. You download the installer onto your Mac, and then you run the installer, follow all the on-screen prompts to run the installer, and then once it's installed, you launch the program, you activate. Job done. And then you install all the content. So that would be all the presets for all the plugins and all the instruments and all of that stuff. And you do that from Studio One installation, and you click on the available downloads button there, and then you just grab stuff and install it there. It is actually really easy. I would say installation on a PC is easier than installation on a Mac. Because when you install Studio One on a Mac, the first thing that comes up is that little dialog where you have to drag the installer into the applications folder. But other than that, there's really nothing to it. And then, of course, you have to agree to all the license terms and all of that stuff. Whereas on a PC, you don't have to do the drag to the applications folder thing on a PC. You basically just download the installer, run the installer, and you just click next, 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 I accept, next, 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 done. And that's it. So I think it's easier to install on a PC than a Mac, but that's just the difference between the Windows operating system and the Mac operating system. Mac has its own logic, and PC Windows has its own logic as well. They're just different logics. But yeah. Let's see what else we have. Dwayne says, I have no complaints on my MacBook Pro M3. Works great. Yep. My iMac is an Intel. It's a 2019 Intel i7. And no, it's not the best Mac on the planet. Like, just ever. I guess that might be the same case, with PCs. If you buy a PC, I think with any computer, whether it's a PC or a Mac, you can end up with just a dud that's just not great, and you wish you hadn't bought it, and you either take it back fairly quickly, and you either swap it out for another one because it's still under warranty, or you buy another one, you get a refund and you buy another one from somewhere else, or I don't know. But the iMac over there belongs to PreSonus, so I can't exactly take it back because it doesn't belong to me. It was bought by PreSonus and sent to me, so I don't own the iMac, and I won't own the Mac Mini if and when it comes. The PC is mine. I do own this PC. This is mine. I have been a PC guy for, oh gosh, many, many, many years. Probably since the end of the 1990s. I would probably suggest, probably since about 1996, 1997, I have been a PC person. And that's kind of just what I'm used to, really. The current PC I have here, I got from a UK company called Scan Computers UK. And in fact, the last 3 computers that I have got from Scan Computers UK. And they are the best in the business. They are fantastic. And they have been brilliant to me. When I got this computer, they couriered it up to me, which was awesome of them to have done that. It wasn't just on a delivery van. They actually, it was great. I needed it in a hurry, and so they built it and they tested it as fast as they possibly could, and then they couriered it to me, and it was delivered to my door at a specific time, and it's been fantastic. I have not had a single issue with it. It was originally a Windows 10 PC that I've upgraded to Windows 11. And it's great. No issues with it whatsoever. And my next PC, when eventually this one does decide it's elderly and is starting to forget things and is starting to kind of get a bit senile, I will replace it with another Scan Computers UK PC. Because they are the best in the business. And if you are in the UK, I highly recommend scan.co.uk. Go there and buy your PC from them. They do pro audio PCs, which is what mine is. It's designed specifically and spec'd out specifically for pro audio and video, because I do video editing, obviously, for this show and for all the videos that I do as well. So Scan are great, and this show is not sponsored by them, but they are fantastic. D Sound Recording Studio says, I have the PreSonus HD8 and Studio 192. Is there any way to run them together as to see all the inputs and outputs? I have to run one or the other at the moment. As Ron correctly points out, you will need to set them up in an aggregate device. Now, here is the key caveat that is incredibly important. And that is this. The HD8, which, by the way, I also have the Quantum HD8. I also have. It's fantastic. The Studio 192 is very elderly and is a discontinued product. And it's no longer supported. It will not work on the latest build of Universal Control. So that is something that you need to bear in mind, because the PreSonus HD8 needs the current build of Universal Control. And the 192 will not run on the latest build of Universal Control. It's not supported to. It may actually run, but it will not be stable. And it will not be reliable because it is not supported to run on the latest version of Universal Control. So that is going to be your biggest issue, even if you are creating an aggregate device. The only way you might, and this is underscore bold italics, might get it to work, is that if you use the Studio 192 in class compliant mode rather than native mode in Universal Control. So if you use the 192 as a class compliant device, it may work, and it may work in an aggregate setup for you. However, bear in mind, aggregate device setups in Studio One are notoriously difficult to troubleshoot because it is very, very difficult to discern which device is causing a problem if you encounter one, because it might be one device or the other, and the firmware of one device or the other that is in conflict with the other device. And so you can end up with a conflict, and that can be a problem. So these are things to bear in mind. There are Apple support articles that Rich has supplied for you, and Just Bob has supplied a video for Mark Lance as well. So thank you for that, Bob. I appreciate that. So I recommend you do a little bit of research, and because they are both PreSonus hardware devices, I highly recommend you make a support ticket. So that you can be sure that they are going to work. And you can ask the hardware team. I know everybody in the hardware support team. Because I have played in a band with them. They are freaking awesome people. And they will answer your questions. So if you've got questions about how to set it up, will it work? Won't it work? They will point you in the right direction. So everything I'm talking to you about aggregate devices is Mac, because you cannot do an aggregate device on a PC, not without using something like ASIO for All, and we don't, and when I say we, I say PreSonus, we don't support ASIO for All. So ASIO for All really is the I'm not going to say it's the only, but it is maybe the most recognized independent ASIO, virtual ASIO driver for Windows. And actually, there are some interfaces out there that the developers basically, they don't have a driver for their device. They've never made one. So they basically say in their instruction manual, in their setup for the interface, you need to install ASIO for All version 2, which is the current version. The problem with ASIO for All is it is not very well maintained. There was a long gap between ASIO version 1 and ASIO for All version 1 and ASIO for All version 2. There was a massive long gap where nothing was happening. And the reason being was that the original developer of ASIO for All died. And nobody really knew how to access his code base and be able to continue development of ASIO for All. Eventually, somebody worked out how to access and how to get hold of the code base for ASIO for All. And once they did that, they developed ASIO for All version 2. Now, ASIO for All is a little bit clunky. It's not the most stable thing on the planet ever. If it crashes, good luck. That's all I'm going to say. If ASIO for All crashes, good luck. Because I don't think there's any real actual technical support that you'll ever get from ASIO for All. Because it is essentially an open source ASIO driver, basically. But yeah, it's not really supported, and it's not really supported by PreSonus either. So if you find that ASIO for All is causing crashes in Studio One, then there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. The PreSonus software support team will basically say, hey, it's ASIO for All, try on installing it, reinstalling it. If that doesn't solve it, sorry, there's nothing we can do. Because that, unfortunately, is the correct answer. Because the cause of the crash is ASIO for All. It's not supported by PreSonus, so there's nothing that can be done. Recording studio, most devices are class compliant. Yes, they are. Most interfaces are class compliant, which means they will run without an ASIO driver. But they work best, if there is one, they will obviously work best with their own ASIO driver. So in the case of PreSonus products, it's universal control. They will work best, and you'll have a broader range of features if you're running a PreSonus interface in universal control than if you were to run it in class compliant mode. But all PreSonus interfaces will work in class compliant mode. Basically the way it works, if you want to access class compliant mode with a PreSonus product, don't install universal control. Basically, just don't install universal control, and it will work in class compliant mode automatically. There's nothing for you to do. D-Sound Recording Studio says, I did try ASIO for All, but it showed a lot of strange outputs. Thanks for helping out. Yeah, the GUI and the routing and all of that for ASIO for All is just something you have to learn if you need to use ASIO for All. It is just something you just have to learn. There are some tutorials on YouTube that you might find that some people have made on how to use ASIO for All, but again, you're at the mercy of, because there is no official support for ASIO for All, and there's no product specialist for ASIO for All, then, there's no kind of official product learning instruction videos, for example. Unlike PreSonus, where you can go on the PreSonus YouTube channel, there's a wealth of official videos made by PreSonus employees who are specialists on their products. So D-Sound said he's got it in light pipe, in and outs at the moment. Okay, yeah, VB audio cables, that's the other one. And voice meter banana. Yes, those are two other very, very good. Those are two very good other virtual device drivers. And they both have fantastic support, by the way. ASIO for All is a bit shit, to be honest. But VB audio cables is really good. Voice meter banana, I used that a while back before, like when I first made my very first tutorial video. I was using Camtasia, but I was using voice meter banana in the background to get my Studio One audio captured, because basically you can't capture DAW audio in screen capture software on a Windows PC normally, because it's just the way audio is designed on a PC. It's very different to a Mac. On a Mac, you can do it very easily because you can aggregate devices. However, on a PC, because you can't do that, streaming audio from Studio One into screen capture software is a pain in the arse, pretty much broadly speaking. However, VB audio cables and voice meter banana will do that for you. If you want a virtual way of doing it, but it is just another piece of software that also runs in, on your CPU and all of that. You can have two interfaces and basically run the outputs of one into the inputs of the other one, and then set your screen capture software to record the audio from that second interface. You can do that. I did that for years. And then some bright spark invented loopback. And that meant I only needed one interface. And before I got the HD8, I used the 1824C, which has loopback built in, which means I don't need to use two interfaces anymore. And so that's what I did. I used the 1824C for a few years. And now I have the Quantum HD8, which has two loopbacks, which is great because it means I can have one loopback set up for doing what I'm doing now. And I have a completely other loopback set up for things like Slack or Discord or Teams or formerly Skype, it means I can have a different mix, a different setup for those. Just Bob says, do all the loops that you can download directly from Presonus come with a thumbnail to identify each package? Kind of like with VSTs. That's a good question. Let's go and quickly take a very quick look. Oh, hello, what's going on here? There we go. The answer is, if you're looking for content like in the loops tab, let me go over to screen over here, put the camera back on. I'm just checking the orientation of the camera. So as you can see here, they are identified by folders. So there are no thumbnails like you do with plugins or instruments. Like if you go into effects, you have these nice little thumbnails. And for the instruments, you also have the nice thumbnails. You don't have these for any of the loop content. They are in folders. I don't think there is a way to change that. At least not that I can see anyway. No. I don't see that there is a way to change that. I don't see that there is like any thumbnails or anything like that. These ones do here. These ones that have the little blue icon. These have, as you can see at the bottom here, these do have some icons. Little thumbnails, like these convology reverbs. Let's see, wavetech. For some of these loops you can see that there are some here that have little icons on them, but not all of them do have. Some of them do, some of them don't. Like these Uberschall ones, these are really ancient. I don't think these have any. Oh, actually they do. Didn't know that. What about these Sample Magic one? These Impact kits. Yeah, these do have some little icons. So, okay, so the answer is some of them do, some of them don't. But you have to access them from the folder. So let's take the Tom Brecklin drums ones. Yeah, there's some little icons here for these ones. So there's those, then there's these ones. Yeah, these have all got icons as well. But if your question is just an idea to show what the package is when downloaded, yeah. So as you can see, some of them do, some of them don't, is the answer to your question there. But they are all clearly identified as a different folder. So these ones here, for example, and so on and so forth. So there's these ones, there's the tenor sax ones. These have little... All right, so I hope that answers your question. They all go into the loops tab and are displayed as Jonny is showing. Yes, that is the correct answer. So some of these have little icons, some of them don't. But like I said, the first place you look is the folder. Okay, so Big Fish Audio, for example, These have all got little icons as well. You just have to open the little folders and then you see what they are. Okay, hope that that helps answer that question. And we'll go back over here. On the HD8, they kind of have a virtual loopback. Still find it hard to understand it. Well, I'm using the virtual loopback right now. It's the only way that you heard any of the audio out of Studio One just there is by using the loopback. Basically, imagine in Universal Control for the HD8, when you have that selected, you'll see at the bottom that there's like a little volume slider for each of your channels that you have available on your interface, right? And you'll have loopback 1, loopback 2. So if you turn up the little volume slider, that sends signal of that particular channel through that loopback. Okay, so if you only want to use loopback 1, then for example, I have loopback 1, I have my microphone, I have the keyboard here, and I have Studio One. And those are the only 3 things that I have going through any of my loopbacks, is the mic, the keyboard, and Studio One. And Studio One is basically a stereo channel, and it's basically just called, it's just like computer audio, basically, is all that is. And then I can just set the level using the little blue slider in Universal Control. And then that controls how much goes to my screen capture software, which is OBS. And then in OBS, I have that set so that I have 2 channels. You can have like 8 channels of audio in OBS. And I'm using 2. So I have a stereo channel for everything that's coming in from the computer through loopback 1. And then on my separate channel is this microphone, because this microphone has it has EQ, it has an expander, and it has a limiter and a compressor on it, and those are all built into OBS. So I'm using EQ, compression, limiting just on the mic, just on this channel, just on the mic channel in OBS, so that my mic gets processed, but what you hear from Studio One doesn't. So when you hear the theme tune music at the start and end of the show, like this, okay, that's coming directly out of Studio One. So when you're listening to the theme tune music, that's coming directly into OBS on its own channel. And my microphone is coming in on a completely different channel. And then I have my speakers turned very, very low, so that basically I can only just hear them, but the microphone doesn't pick up the speakers. So you don't get any doubling effect of hearing Studio One and then hearing Studio One again through the microphone. You don't get that because of the way I have things configured. So that's how loopback works in a nutshell. I'll agree, it is a little bit tricky to get your head around, but once you have your head around it, then it makes sense. And it is just a case of just setting the levels in Universal Control, setting the levels in your screen capture software, and you're good to go. And then you just set it and forget it. Let's see. Rich Cresswell is answering Just Bob on the downloading of sound sets and loops and things. He says, I have downloaded a couple of things and didn't notice this. There you go. Marvin Lewis is here. We are 15 minutes over, but I'm going to answer this question to finish the show. And he says, started with the 1824C to MacBook Pro, bought a second 1824C, trouble setting them up, any tutorials online? Again, you'd have to set them up as an aggregate device. And yes, if you scroll back up the chat, you'll see that there is a knowledge base article from Apple support that should help you do that. Bear in mind, they are both PreSonus devices. I don't think the 1824C can be extended. I know that the original Quantum, and if you got a second Quantum, like if you got like the 4848 and you got another 4848, the two could actually be set together as an extended device. And that would give you a whole megaton of I/O. I don't think the 1824C does that. So that's something to bear in mind. All right, so I think we'll end the show there because, like I said, we're 15 minutes over. And so you have had 15 minutes of bonus me, you lucky, lucky people. So we'll end the show there. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for coming and for all of your great questions. We peaked at 28 people watching, and we're currently now down at 18. But thank you very much, everybody, for watching and for all 22 of the likes. If you have not hit the like button and you liked what we talked about tonight, hit the like button, please. It helps me a lot. And I will see you on Wednesday. And I'm definitely doing a show on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified. I will talk to Rich and see what his availability is. And if he's available on Wednesday, I will have him on the show and we will talk all things Halloween and the Halloween challenge. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. And Rich has a meetup after show in L&R. So if you want to go join Rich over there and continue the conversation and ask more questions. Oh, Rich says he's free. Awesome. There we go. So I will get Rich on the show, probably via Teams, Microsoft Teams. We used to do it on Skype, but Skype is no more. So we'll have to do it on Teams, which is kind of much the same thing, to be honest. Having used Teams a little bit, it's pretty much like Skype used to be. So we could probably do that. And I will get him into the show on Wednesday. So look forward to seeing you then. And you will get all the details discussed and talked about the Halloween challenge and when the closing date is going to be, because it's not going to be on Halloween itself, unfortunately, because of when Halloween is. So I'll see you then, folks. Good night, everybody.